Hello YouTube and welcome to another video. In this video we'll have a look at my Chess.com Global Championship match against Alexander Grischuk. Now Alexander Grischuk needs no introduction. He's a 3-time World Blitz champion. He was rated over 2800 and I believe at his peak of his career he was number 2 in the world. Anyway, he was clearly the favorite for this match, but let's have a look at how things went. So in the first game I was playing with the black pieces and he opened the game up with the move 1, knight f3. I play knight f6 and he goes g3. So he plays a ready system and I decided to play d5, bishop g2 and c5. Not a system I usually play, but I wanted to surprise him a little bit. He goes castles and I go g6. So kind of a reversed Grunfeld or King Zini, whatever you want to call it. c4, bishop g7, he takes and he goes knight c3. I go knight c6, all pretty standard so far. He trades on d5, pawn to d3, castles and bishop e3. So with the move bishop e3, white sacrifices a pawn. I can take over here, but white goes rook b1, and if I move the bishop back after, let's say, queen a4, white gets quite an annoying initiative. Right? I mean, this bishop is pointing on this diagonal, the bishop is pointing towards this pawn, the rook is pretty active, rook of c1 potentially, maybe a knight jump. So I decided not to go into that, but I played the more solid bishop d7, because if white gets another move, like let's say I go here, very often white can go knight d4, hit the queen, if I move the queen back, he can take here and ruin my pawn structure. So go bishop d7 to already defend the knight on c6. So bishop d7, knight at d4, queen d6. He takes, and goes rook to c1, hitting the pawn on c5, which is not that easy to defend. Because if I go pawn b6, white plays b4, taking the pawn, which is pinned, and white gets quite a nasty advantage. So instead of that, I go queen to e6, moving my queen out of the way and hitting this pawn over here. So takes the pawn with the rook, queen takes a2, and he goes rook b5, defending this pawn and simultaneously attacking this pawn over here. Now, I believe all of this is a theory. Black is not supposed to take here because after queen c2, I lose a piece. So I go b6 to defend, and he goes queen to b3. Now here, actually funnily enough, Fabiano Caruana had this position today with the black piece against Martin Kravtsov in his Chess.com Global Championship match, and Fabiano traded on b3, after which he was a little bit worse in the endgame. Now, perhaps this would have maybe been a better way to play, but I played the move queen to a6. And the reason for that is that if I trade on b3, he's going to recapture, and I can't really stop him from going rook a1 and rook to a6 and establish a blockade over these pawns on the queen side, which is going to be a little bit annoying because these pawns are a little bit weak. They can't really move forward. And, you know, it could easily transpire into a 5 versus 4 endgame on the king side, right? White has 5 pawns on this side, I have 4 here. Anyway, I played queen to a6, and here he played a really good move. He played pawn to h4. Alright, so he wants to go h5, and I mean, if I go h5 myself, I was a little bit worried that he could potentially go g4, and actually he can go g4 right away. If I take h5, white gets a pretty scary initiative. Let's say I take, then rook g5, and right, the threats become very, very dangerous. Alright, so instead of that, I went rook f to c8, bringing my rook into the game, but now, of course, he gets h5 in. I go e6, and he goes h6. I go bishop f8, and the problem always with these types of positions is that I'm not getting checkmated right away, right? Because it's difficult for him to line up the queen and the bishop on the diagonal, but this pawn on h6 is always going to be so super annoying. Like in every endgame or every middle game also, there's always going to be ideas, always back rank threats, so it's pretty annoying. So he played pawn to d4, and I played rook to d8 to stop him from going d5, but he went d5 anyway. Now, I thought maybe he could have gone rook to d1, after which I probably would have played rook to d7, and I thought, okay, if he goes d5 here, I have rook a to d8, and at least I stopped this move for the moment. Right, so he goes d5, I take the pawn, he takes, and, well, with this move, he hangs the pawn on e2, so I take it, and he goes rook f to d1. So, okay, white obviously has some compensation, he's pretty active, he has his pawn on h6, but we have a pawn to show for it, and again, I don't see how I'm getting checkmated right away. So I took on d5, he recaptured the queen, and I go rook to e8, because my rook is under attack, and he goes rook to d2. Now here, there were a couple options. I could have decided to go rook takes e3 with the idea that if he takes, here black is doing really well. Because after takes, I have 1, 2, 3 pawns for the exchange, and my king is more safe than his king over here. So black's doing pretty well. But the problem is if I go rook takes e3, he takes my queen, and if I recapture after, let's say, b4, I can't really get more out of this position than, let's say, taking over here, bishop f8 back, takes, and this position should just be a draw, right? I mean, I have a rook, a bishop, and a pawn. I'm clearly not risking anything, but I also can be better. So this was one option. Now, I could have also just moved my queen, let's say to g4. Again, this is a threat, but this pawn on h6 is pretty annoying, so I didn't really fancy playing this position either. So I played queen e1 check, and I sacked the exchange here. He takes, I take. Now, if I get one more move and take this pawn over here, I think black's doing pretty well, but he goes rook f2 first, hitting this pawn over here. So go queen e8 to defend. He goes queen g5. He realizes that he has to keep this pawn on the board. And here, you know, I was a little bit down on time, so I decided to simplify the position a little bit. I gave a check, and after he moved his king out of the way, I played queen to c5. Right, so offering a queen trade, but at the same time also hitting his rook. Now he can play queen f6, but I believe that I go queen h5 check. Because king g2, I thought that I can just keep on checking and I should be fine. Same with king g1, I just give a check over here, and black should be making the draw. Anyway, he traded, I recapture, so now I'm ready to take this pawn over here. He can go rook c2, for example, but I just trade the c pawn for the h-pawn, and I think, to be honest, if anyone is better, it might be black, even though these endgames always should be a draw. But my a-pawn is defended, I have a 3 versus 1 majority, but neither side should really lose this one. But he went for a trickier move. He played pawn to b3, I take, and rook a2. So his idea is to take here, and now it's a little bit tricky, because if I go bishop b3, and he should start with the move g4, not allowing me to go h5. And eventually we'll get a position like this, although I mean everything should be a draw. But I thought the problem is that my bishop doesn't have a very nice anchor square. Because if I go bishop d4, there will always be ideas with bringing the rook to c4 and then him threatening b4. Now, I don't know if this is realistic, but at least that's what I was thinking during the game. So I played bishop to f8 to make sure that my bishop can always protect from this side. He goes g4, same idea, not allowing me to go h5 without damaging my pawn structure. So I go king up. He takes, and I go h5. All right, so he trades, he goes rook a6, stopping my king from coming up. I go f6 first, king g3, king g6, he goes king f4, but here I give a check, and he has to make a decision, like if he goes king back. Although this one would have been trickier, because this isn't a move, because rook a5, and I actually lose, and he has b4. But again, there should be a way for black to draw the game, maybe just bishop back, and then move the king up on the next move. But he went king e4, now I go h4, setting my pawn in motion. He went rook to c6, h3, and now he cannot capture this pawn over here because I go h2 and the c1 square is covered, so I get a new queen. So he went king f3 back, but now I go bishop e3, nice little move he cannot take because then after h2 he cannot stop me from promoting. So he went king g3, but now I just go king f5, takes, and bishop d4. Guarding this over here, and here it was clear that the game was headed for a draw. So he goes here, I go king e4, and I'm just headed for the queen side. Goes rook b8, I go c4, just trading the pawns. King f5, bishop b5, and I mean here, playing on doesn't make too much sense. My bishop always guards the pawn, and there's no chance for him to win. So he just went rook f8, king d4, and he traded down. So this first game ends in a draw. Good result. I mean, generally when you're playing with the black pieces, you're happy with a draw, especially in a match. So let's move on to the next game. So the next game I was playing with the white pieces. So I played pawn to d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, plays d5, and I play g3, so the Catalan. Now Grischuk, I've played him before in the World Cup in 2019, and what I saw is that generally in matches he tries to play very solid with black. So he plays bishop b7, one of the more solid systems. I go bishop g2. All of this is theory. Queen c2. Now Hikaru likes playing the move b5 here, but the old main line really is the move a6, which is still very, very solid. I go a4. Now the point is that if I take, black goes b5 and bishop b7. That is why I play the move a4 here. But he goes bishop d7, takes, and bishop c6, so he puts his bishop on this diagonal anyway to neutralize my bishop on the long diagonal, and I go bishop f4, bishop d6, and queen to c1. So in case he takes, I can always recapture with my queen, and I don't have to damage my pawn structure. So he goes knight bd7, which is a logical move. Now another move black can choose here is a5 followed by knight a6 to b4. So he goes knight bd7, and this one threw me off a little bit. As you guys can see here, I was still in my preparation. I had 15 minutes, but I played the move knight to c3. After to be honest, too long of a think. Right? More than 4 minutes on a move is too long in a 15-minute game. So he plays rook to b8 and I go rook to d1. Again, I feel like I was spending too much time here, spending another 2 minutes. And I'm down 6 minutes on the clock, which is pretty dangerous. He goes h6, and here I really wasn't quite sure what to do, because I want to go e4 at some point, and I don't really want to go queen c2, because again, he can take and damage my pawn structure, even though it's not the end of the world, but it's not quite what I wanted. And also now I feel like I cannot really play knight h4 anymore, because he always has tricks with g5, like if he takes here, can recapture the queen because of g5. So instead of that, I played knight e1, trying to trade the bishops. He took. Now I can take with the knight, but I want to move my knight back to f3 eventually, so I took with the king, queen e7, and knight to f3. So now if I get e4, I think I'm a little bit better, but he played the move c5 first. Alright, so I take here, he takes here, I recapture, he takes on c5. So the position is very symmetrical, and I wasn't quite sure what to do, because I want to double my rooks, but I cannot go rook d2 or rook d4, because he goes knight b3, and he forks the rooks and wins the game. And rook d6 also feels very tricky, right? Like black can even just go, let's say rook d8, and if we go here, I mean, he can just take everything, I think, and rook d8, and the game is just completely equal. So I played the move e4, again, after too long of a thing, like going from 6 minutes to 2:26 is probably not good, but he goes rook after d8 and e5. Now that being said, e4 probably was a good move, because I gain more space here. He goes knight e8. And here things are tricky. I wanted to play the move b4 to kick the knight back, after which I'm a little bit better, but black has the move knight at e3, hitting the queen, and he wins his pawn over here. So b4 is not a good move. So I played queen e3 first to make sure that this is not in the position. He goes knight to c7, but now I go b4, and his knight has to go back. So here, white should be a little bit better, but again, things are tricky. I'm down to a minute. He has 3 minutes and 16 seconds on the clock, but I go rook to d4, preparing to double up the rooks. He goes knight f8. Rook d1, takes, and he goes knight d5. Good move, I think, because he wants to try to use the d-file somehow. And the problem is after knight d5, I can take twice, but it doesn't give me an advantage, because black takes this one over here, his knight comes to e6, and black is very, very solid. So instead of that, I played queen to b6. Right, so I'm hitting this pawn with the rook, which is not that easy for black to defend. Maybe he had to go rook to d8. And during the game, I thought I should be better after, let's say, knight at d4, but black seems to be doing quite all right here after, let's say, queen at d7. So a better move should have been something like b5. You know, if he takes, I take, and again, I have pressure towards this pawn. This one is a little bit weak. So here I was becoming optimistic, you know, because also here he was spending some time, but eventually he came with the move queen at d7, which I think was a really good move. Right, he's hitting this pawn over here. Now maybe again I should have gone b5, because if he takes, I take with the queen. And if he takes, I recapture. And again, because of this weakness over here, I mean, I go knight d4, f4, and white should still have quite a pleasant advantage. But instead of that, I went queen at d6. Now, my idea is that if he takes, I recapture, and my d-pawn is blocking him from defending this pawn on d5. So I win the pawn on d5 and should have very good winning chances. But he played the move queen takes a4, because if I take his rook, he takes this one over here. So I took on b1. Now, maybe it would have been better to take on d5, but I thought he should have been completely fine after the move rook c8, but, you know, maybe I keep some activity. Anyway, I took the rook, he took his, I took the pawn on b7, he went queen d3, and around here the game is equal, but I still have to be a little bit careful. I played queen a8, he played queen e4, and I thought, okay, I just take here, and it's probably just headed for a draw, but black here actually had a very good move. He could have played the move g5, and actually, there's nothing I can do about the move g4. If I go h3, he goes h5, and he's going g4, and I'm simply losing a piece, and with that, the game. So after g5, what I should have done is take on h6, he goes g4, and now play something along the lines of queen f4. So I sacrifice the piece, he takes on e5, but I still have the move b5, and he cannot really stop my b-pawn from marching up the board. Note that he doesn't have knight d7 a block, because I have queen g4, and I win the knight back, and I should win the game. But instead of that, black can play someone like queen e6, right? And trade the d-pawn for the b-pawn. Now, this should be a draw because everything is on one flank. And probably if we trade the queens, it's a draw as well. But it's still a little bit annoying. Anyway, instead of that, he took on b4. And now it's clear the game is headed for a draw. I go queen e3 back, goes queen e4, we trade, I go 92, he goes 97, I take, he takes f4, 97, king f3, and we agree to a draw. So after 2 games, the score was 1-1. I mean, a fine game with the white pieces. I didn't get much out of the opening, so that was a little bit annoying, right? Whereas he did exert a little bit of pressure. So, you know, I felt like the match was going all right, but he definitely had a bit of an initiative. Anyway, let's move on to the next game. So the next game I play with the black piece again. So he goes knight f3, knight f6, g3, d5. So repeat the same line. Now note that there is a little bit of time in between the games, so that gives me some time to look up some lines, but also him. And an important detail to know is that Grischuk, I believe, he is married to Katerina Lachno, and I heard her say in an interview that while she was playing the women's speech as championship, he was looking up lines in between the breaks and, you know, telling those lines to her. So, you know, the same situation might have been possible here, right? He basically has a GM as a second during the match, and I don't. Satch. Anyway, I go bishop g7, he takes, and he plays pawn on d4. So in the last game he played knight c3, but here he deviates. And this line generally is quite symmetrical because I just take and go short castles, and he plays knight c3. But even though it's symmetrical, white still has some chances for an advantage. Now he played rook to b1. The other main move is taking on c6. Again, we're playing copycat chess here. But in case white takes here and bishop takes c6, black still has to be quite accurate to prove the equality. Anyway, he played rook to b1. So okay, I cannot really move the bishop out. So I kind of have to take the pawn here. So I take, and he goes bishop e3. A good move. Now, if I take on d1, he recaptures with the rook. And white is pretty nasty activity for the pawn. Right? I mean, I do have to give the pawn on b7. And we'll likely get into some endgame like this where, you know, white is basically better. He has the rook in the 7th rank. The a-pawn is a little bit weak. All of his pieces are active. And I just have to suffer and hope that I can make a draw. But the best move is to move queen c4. And that is what I played. Note that I'm also hitting this one. He goes bishop d5, queen a6, and queen to b3. So he's putting a lot of pressure here. And here, after some thought, I played rook to b8. Now note that again, he is still in his preparation. He has 14 minutes and 44 seconds on the clock. Well, I'm already down to 12 minutes, right? I'm figuring stuff out over the board. All right, so I go rook to b8, which does seem to be quite an inaccuracy. And he played this quite well. He played bishop to f4, hitting my rook. I have to go e5. And he just goes bishop back. Now, you might be thinking like, okay, what has he really achieved over these last 2 moves, right? I mean, first of all, he blocks my bishop on this long diagonal. Secondly, I cannot play the move e6 anymore. So the pressure on this diagonal becomes pretty nasty. And he also gets the possibility to go bishop c5 to hit the rook to get this pawn over here. So go bishop f5, a nice move, developing with a tempo, hitting his rook. He goes rook bc1, good move. He wants to go rook to c7. And I'm like, okay, he has all the activity in the world. Let me at least grab another pawn to suffer for it. Now here, he probably made an inaccuracy. He should have played the move bishop c5, hitting the rook. Now during the game, I don't think I was too worried about this. I think I would have played rook to d8. He can take, I go king here. And I thought things were not as bad. Like maybe on a good day, I can somehow line up this, even though it's unrealistic. But don't forget, I'm still up a pawn in this position. But this would have been white's best continuation. And he can actually grab another pawn over here. And white does seem to be better in the complications. But instead of that, he went rook fe1, hitting my queen. Now I could have gone queen d3, but I played queen a6, bring the queen back to defend. He played rook to c7, hitting this pawn as well. And I go bishop e6, at least neutralizing the pressure on this diagonal. All right, so he takes, I take, and I thought, okay, things are going pretty all right because I thought, you know, he should take. And I saw this line that if he takes on a7, I go rook to a8. And this leads to a force draw, because if his bishop moves, I take over here. And again, like my pawns are doubled, but it's not a big deal. Everything is on one flank. And the game should be a draw. And if he takes this pawn over here, I go rook f7. Right, I offer him the rook trade, so in case he takes, I take. If he moves the bishop again, I take this pawn over here, and the game ends in a draw. And he cannot go rook b1, because now I take this bishop over here. My rook protects the other rook. And after rook b8 check, I have the very clever rook f8 back. So So in case he takes, I can just recapture the bishop. Again, I get this pawn on a2. And I mean, these positions should always just be a draw because everything is on one flank. All right, but he came up with a clever move. He played bishop takes a7, right? So his idea is that if I now go rook a8, now he can take. And again, there's no a pawn that I can take. There's no rook f7, and it's still not so easy. So here I played queen takes b3 after too long of a thing. I went from 4 minutes to 1 minute, and I clearly was under some pressure here because he still has 5.5 minutes on the clock. So I go rook bc8, he takes, and now f5, a good move. I want to go rook f7 to trade off the rooks because his rook on the 7th rank is pretty annoying. Now, I feel like if he goes b4, I think I would have gone here, takes. After b5, though, things are still a little bit tricky, but apparently I'm still doing all right after, let's say, rook c7 and rook here, because my king comes up pretty quickly, my bishop can come to defend as well. But he went rook to d1. Now I go rook f7, and here things should be should be a lot easier for me. So he takes, gives a check. Now here I have to make an awkward move. I cannot go to e6 obviously because I hang my bishop. I don't want to go back to the back rank either. So I go king f6, but for the moment I am blocking my bishop and I cannot bring it back too easily because I will always hang this one. So he goes b4. I gave a check to get behind the pawn, and he goes bishop c5. So I go g5 to move my king out of the way, and I can go e4 because I cannot go e4 here because he has bishop d4 and I lose the game. So I go g5, preparing king g6, but also e4 followed by f4. Goes rook b7, I go king g6, he goes b5, e4, b6. And here the move I wanted to make was of course the move f4, but I thought he could take and rook e7, hit this one over here. And I don't have king f5 because I hang this, but what I miss is that I have to move bishop f8, hitting the rook, and if he moves the rook, he hangs the bishop. And so black is completely fine. So had I seen it, I would have played the move f4, and here, you know, if white is not careful, things could also get out of control. You know, if I get f3, then the king could suddenly end up in a mating now with h5, g4, bishop f6 coming. But anyway, I play bishop e5 first, he goes rook e7, and now I have to make a bit of an awkward move. Like, I can go bishop back, but I lose the tempo. If he goes, let's say, rook c7. I should be fine, though, but it feels a little tricky. Right, let's say he takes and b7. His b-pawn is pretty far advanced. But again, I guess I can just go bishop e5. So I played king f6, sacking the pawn, but I go f4. And I feel like I should have enough activity for the draw. Right, f3 is always coming with checkmating ideas. His bishop now also doesn't have a good square along the diagonal anymore, so rook b5 could be annoying. But he goes king h3. All right, so he wants to go king g4. And if he puts the king here, he has a bit of a blockade. So on king f5, now if I get another move, I want to go g4. And again, try to close the mating net around the king. Let's say he goes b7. There's no checkmate right away, but just to show some variations. They're not working, but they're very tricky. Okay, he has h4, right? And white is winning. But just to show you guys some ideas as to what could happen. So he played rook f7. I go back, and he goes rook f8. So he's not allowing my king to go back up. But now I go rook b5, hitting his bishop. And his bishop doesn't have a good square. Because if he goes back, then I can take this pawn over here, and I should be fine. So he went rook c8 to defend. I go king f5. Again, trying to close the mating net. He could go g4, but it's actually back, because I go back, and again, there's all these checkmating ideas, because his king will always be so boxed in. So it's very, very tricky. So here, when we were both on seconds, we just went for this repetition. So this was a big relief, because again, I was down a lot of time on the clock. I definitely felt some pressure. So to get away with a draw here was a good result. Anyway, we move on to the fourth and final game. So whoever wins this game wins the match. Now, I also played Grischuk in the World Cup in 2019, and we drew the two classical games. Then we drew the first rapid game, which was very up and down. I had a winning position, then he had a forced win at some point. But anyway, the game ended in a draw. And then I lost the second rapid game with the white piece. So I was like, okay, I don't want this to happen again. So I chose to play a bit more solidly. I played d4. Again, we repeat the same opening as in the second game. He takes, and obviously we looked up this line a little bit during the break. He goes knight bd7 again. I go rook e1, rook b8 from him again, because his idea is that after knight c3, he wants to go b5. All right, so I just took, he recaptures, and I played e4 and offered a draw, which he took. All right, so the four rapid games end in 2-2, which means one thing: we move on to Armageddon. Now, for the Armageddon game, what you have to do is submit a bid, because white will get 15 minutes and black will get whatever player, whatever was the lowest bid of the two players. Now, I will keep my bid for now to myself, but as it turned out, Grischuk bid 10 minutes and 45 seconds. So from the very start, he was down 4 minutes and 15 seconds, but he did have draw odds. So if the game ends in a draw, he wins the match and moves on. So before the match, I knew like, okay, I have to change, you know, my mode a little bit from like rapid mode to blitz mode, right? Like I just have to play fast, put the pressure on him. And I also have to switch it up. Like in the two rapid games with white, I didn't get much. So I played the move c4. And already here he went for a bit of a think. He played the move e5, as you guys can see, after 10 seconds of thought. I played g3. He played d6 again. He's taking his time a little bit in the opening, whereas as you can see, I try to play very quickly. So knight c3, f5, bishop g2, knight f6, d3, bishop b7. So he goes for this setup, which I was not too unhappy about, because it means that we will keep all the pieces on the board, which is what I want. I want a complicated game where still anything can happen and where he really needs to spend a lot of time. What I don't want is the game to simplify quickly, where his drawing chances increase. So he goes pawn a5, a good move, stopping me from going b4, expanding on the queen side. I castle, he castles, and now I go rook to b1. So the annoying thing is here I have to go a3, b4, and only then I get in this move, right? Whereas had I played b4, then I would have already, then I could just do it in one move. Instead, now I have to spend multiple moves. So he goes h6, I go a3, queen e8, and b4. So he takes, bishop b6. Now he played this move, so there's no knight g5 jump. I played pawn e3, discouraging him from playing the move f4. He develops bishop c2 and c6. So black should be doing pretty alright here. He has a nice setup. He has his fair share of the center. But again, if we look at the clock, I'm up 5 minutes here. So that's kind of what I want, right? I want all the pieces on the board. I want to keep my time advantage and just keep the position as complicated as possible. So I go b5, trying to put pressure on this pawn over here, potentially on the long diagonal. Goes queen f7. Again, he took quite a bit of time here. Now I'm up 6 minutes. I go queen c2, goes rook ac8, and I go rook fc1. So again, up to this point, I'm pretty happy with how the game is going. I'm up 6 minutes. No, wait, I'm up 5 minutes on the clock here. Still pretty good. It's a bigger time advantage than I started with, and the game is very complicated. All right, so he goes d5. I take, he recaptures, I go knight to e2 to hit this pawn over here. And he plays bishop d6 to defend. Again, I'm up at this point I'm up 6.5 minutes. I take on d5. And my idea is that if he takes with the pawn, now I give up my queen for the two rooks, but white should be better here. After king h7, apparently rook to c6 is very strong, but I thought also someone like d4 looked very interesting, and perhaps this... Oh wait, it doesn't work because he has this. That's what I missed. I thought he had to take with the bishop. And here, you know, with my knight coming in, my bishop being so strong in this long diagonal, I should be doing very well. Anyway, regardless of that, white has the advantage here with the two rooks against the queen. So he made the correct decision, which was to take with the knight. All right, and here I wasn't quite sure as to how to continue. But okay, first I play bishop a1, moving my bishop out of the way, and he goes c5. So he creates this square on b4 for his knight. Now what I would want to do is go knight d2 to c4, but unfortunately I can't, because he goes knight b4, hitting my queen in the pawn, and if I go queen c3, he gets this fork, and that's of course really not what I want. So I go queen e1 first, but now he goes knight b4, stopping me from going here. I go knight c3, trying to go knight b5 perhaps. He goes rook to b8, and I go queen e2. Now here, things were slipping away a little bit, because if we look at the time, I'm still up like almost 5 minutes here, but I let it sink down to 3, and he plays the move c4, a good move quickly, and it's not easy. Like, if I take, he takes, hits my queen, he gets knight d3, gets e4, and black gets easy moves. And that's of course really what he wants when he's lower on time. But instead of that, I go d4. Now, I felt that maybe this is not the correct move, but at least it keeps the position more complicated. He goes e4, knight d2, and knight d3. And I go rook f1. All right, so I want to go f3, open on my bishop, open on my rook as well. So he takes, which is logical, to distract my rook from the f file, because I want to play f3. But on the other hand, I get the open b file here. He goes knight f6. I go f3, so now I activate my bishop again. And here he makes a big mistake. Now, I think had he played the move bishop b4, sorry, hitting this knight and potentially getting big control over the light squares, he should have been in really good shape to at least draw this game. But instead of that, he played knight d5, which is fine. But after knight b5, things got very tricky. I'm hitting his bishop over here, and apparently bishop b4 is still a good move. Because if I take, he now has knight f4, and if I take, takes over here, and my knight's in a bit of trouble. But instead of that, he played bishop e8, and now I take here. Right, I take this pawn, his knight on d3 is losing its support, so all of a sudden things are very tricky for black. He played knight 5 f4, I take, he takes over here, and I play knight a3. So again, here things are really good for me again, because I'm up a pawn, I'm also up 2 minutes, and you know, he's down to 3 minutes, right? So his time is really taking away. He goes bishop to a6 to keep defending his knight. And here already I saw a very nice line. I go rook to b6 to hit his bishop, because the bishop is defending the knight. Now here black apparently still has a move with rook to c8. Because if I take, he has rook c1. And black seems to be doing alright. If I go king g2, he has knight e1. But good luck finding that with only 3 minutes on the clock. Grischuk goes for the very logical rook to e8. But here I unleashed a very nice move. Feel free to pause your video. I played the move bishop d5, which I saw beforehand. Now the problem is, if he takes the bishop, I take here, and he not only loses material, but he also gets checkmated, so he cannot do that. So instead he has to take the queen. Now, taking the queen leads to nothing special, but I take the bishop first with a check. He doesn't have a way to block, so he has to go king here, and I take the queen here. Now here I was worried for a second, because he gave a check, and I thought, okay, does he have rook e2? Because if I go back to the back rank, he just repeats. If I go to f3, he checkmates me in one move. And if I go to h3, well, it looks like checkmate, but it's not quite. After g5, I cannot take, because rook e4 will be nasty. But I have king h5, and my king is safe over here. And I'm up a piece, so I should win this. So it all works out. But anyway, he took this bishop over here. Things are still great. I'm up 1 minute and 16 seconds on the clock here. I play bishop g8 check. He cannot go up because I gave a check. Bishop f7, and he gets checkmated. So he had to go back, right? And again, I'm up 1.5 minutes on the clock. I have this discovery, but I didn't see a direct win. Like, I can give a check over here, grab another pawn, but I wasn't too convinced. Right, I mean, I can take over here, but his bishop will be pretty active. My knight is misplaced on the rim. Of course, maybe I can potentially try to flag him, but that's not going to be so easy, right? Because the material is quite limited, and 2.5 minutes is still quite a bit of time. So I felt like there should be something. Now, what I should have done is given this check over here, king h7, and now rook b6, because I'm hitting this bishop, and I'm threatening bishop g6 checkmate. Now, it's not game over right away. Again, to illustrate, like if he takes, he gets checkmated. Black still has his move bishop b7. Oh, sorry. Bishop b7, which I have to take, and now he takes over here. But overall, it should be really good for me. Probably now rook b6, preparing this. And again, his knight on d3, all of the... He cannot do too much with it. Rook a2 is also blocked. So white should be winning, but still quite a bit of work to be done. But anyway, I played knight to c2, hitting his rook first. And he went to a5. And again, things are not easy. I gave a check over here, he went king h7. And around this point, I even got lower on the clock. So this is where I got a little bit nervous, right? Because I feel like my advantage is slipping away. I'm also getting lower on time. But I play rook b6. So I'm threatening bishop g6 check. But he has this move g5, giving his king a little bit more space. Now here I'm doing very well still after, let's say, king f3, king e3, because he cannot do too much with this knight. It's actually a little bit trapped. But I thought I saw a really nice combination. I went for rook takes a6, takes, and bishop c4. Because I'm hitting his rook and his knight, and he doesn't have a way to defend the knight with the rook. But here black has an amazing resource, which is completely out of this world. Black has the move knight to b4. Alright, so if I take the knight, he goes rook a4, hitting the knight and my bishop. I don't have any checks on his king, so I'm losing a minor piece back, and black draws the game on the spot. There's nothing I can do. Because if I take the rook over here, he goes knight takes c2. He is also hitting this pawn. I cannot defend it. If I go d5, he just goes knight e3. Gets this one. Also, pawns are getting traded down. I have the wrong pawn for wrong color bishop with this pawn. So the game is just a draw. There's nothing I can do. Also, he still has 2 minutes, so it's not like I can flag him. But fortunately, we both missed this. He played knight takes f4. I recaptured. And I believe here, had he played someone like rook f6 to defend this one preemptively, he might have still had chances to draw. Or apparently better would have been, let's say, rook a4, right, to keep an eye on this pawn on d4. But he played the move rook to b6. But I think after this move, he cannot save the game anymore. I took on g5, he recaptured, and I go bishop d3. So I hit this pawn, he has to go king g6, and I go knight e3. And here I felt like the win was within reach. Because I'm going to take this pawn, I still have these 2 pawns on the board, which I can always defend. He played rook b2 check, king g3, and he goes king f6, and now I take. And I felt like I was winning. Because one important detail is that he cannot play rook e2. Because I go king f3, and if he takes, I go knight g4 with the fork. Now actually, the move he played rook d2 was good, d5, but here actually he could have played rook e2. Because now if I go king f3, he takes, and knight g4 actually leads to a draw because he gets my last pawn. But it turns out white is still winning after king e4, followed by knight g4. Not easy. Also, I feel like, you know, white's moves should be easier in the resulting time scramble. So white still has a pretty good chance to win, but it definitely would have still been a tough task. But instead of that, he goes rook to d4, cutting off my king. But now I just go bishop e6, and I just start defending everything. So go knight g4. Again, things were not that easy because I'm getting below a minute, but I've played enough, you know, blitz and bullet on Chess.com that I felt like, okay, I should be able to close this one out. So I maneuver my knight to f3. Now go bishop g4 to go d6, d7 to win rook a6. Now I can bring in my king. He goes rook d6, bishop e6. Goes back, I bring the king up. Gives a check, I go here. Rook a1, I go bishop g4. Again, threatening to push this pawn up. So he gave a check, knight d4, and I played knight c6. Now when I played this move, as you guys can see, I had 35 seconds on the clock and he had 45 seconds. And here I started thinking, so it's like, okay, nice. Because I also don't see it for him, because I'm going to move my king up here, and then d6, d7 is going to come. Black has absolutely no way to defend. But as he was thinking more, I was like, wait, I didn't lose my connection, did I? Right? And I was looking down, I mean, still everything looks good. And then when he had around 15 seconds left, the message showed black resigned, and I won the match. So that was a big, big relief. We win the match against Grischuk. Maybe one of the biggest wins of my career. We move on to the round of 32. But this win was also a very special one for another reason, which is, again, that I played Grischuk in the World Cup in 2019. As you guys can see here, I lost to him in the round of 64 in a very tough match, which, as you guys can see here, was quite a heartbreaker, but we get our revenge. Anyway, guys, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.
Whatever Benjamin does, do not give away the knight and the d-pawn for the rook, as you said.
Right. So that's why the bishop on e6 will remain anchored to that pawn. And just move. Grischuk has to move. He's up 10 seconds. He has an opportunity here.
King d6. This would be a crazy comeback if he can make
Great
it happen.
move. Look at that retreat, though. Knight f3 and then king g4 is not available now. Oh, he moves the bishop
G4.
back. He wants d6, d7.
The path is paved. Grischuk stops him, but here comes the king.
And 48 seconds for Bach. 53 for Grischuk. Bishop back to e6. Move the rook back. If king
But
e3,
the lateral checks are so annoying here for white because of the risk of having to give up your knight.
Yeah, rook a4, knight d4, rook back. Oh, the h3 pawn's defended, though.
Excellent move.
The h3 pawn's protected, so knight d4 is coming right
and
now.
d6
and
is unstoppable, or is it?
Knight c6, but 35 seconds. Oh my gosh.
Oh, but
maybe
Robert, rook,
yeah.
king d4, king c5 is going to pave the way for the pawn. I think he's going to win this.
But what about knight and bishop versus king? Like, just
Can you do it though? You can't get rid of the H pawn. Oh, Benjamin's
so
gonna
much
win.
time. He's
No,
gonna
that's
move.
it. That's it.
This is tantamount to resignation. I think Grischuk acknowledging that Benjamin has his winning over the board and he's not even moving and he's got 19 seconds left. There's no increment. He is going down.
I can't believe he missed knight before. That would have drawn on the spot, and he resigns, and Benjamin Bach wins the Armageddon.
And there you see celebration from the Dutch Grandmaster Bach. He can hardly believe it. He wins. Grischuk says goodbye to the tournament as his camera goes black. Benjamin Bach moves on. And what a game that was. That was nerve-wracking for him. He had a winning position down here. He missed the immediate checkmate and the win there, but he still managed to keep his composure.
Bach on and carry on. What a win for Benjamin. He knocks out one of the pre-tournament favorites.